Why is the proper understanding of Chodesh important? Because if the word has not been properly defined, we are not following Scripture in the right way. So do not fear them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be revealed, and nothing hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the darkness, speak in the light, and what you hear in your ear, proclaim from the housetops. We are going to see what Chodesh means. Test all things. It was during my study of the third millennium in preparation for Yom 3 that I found evidence to the proper understanding of God's timepiece. The proper definition of Chodesh is vital to that understanding. There are 53 English translations. They all translate this Hebrew word as month. Merriam-Webster defines it as a measure of time corresponding nearly to the period of the moon's revolution and amounting to approximately 4 weeks or 30 days or 1/12 of a year. So where did the acceptance of this definition, month, come from? I'm going to suggest to you it came from man's tradition and not from Elohim. The scriptures in both Hebrew and Greek texts have for generations been translated with certain bias based on theological points of view. Take, for instance, the word Pesach, here also in the Greek, found in the book of Acts 12:4. Of the 53 English translations, these 3 use the original Greek word found in the oldest transcripts, while the majority use the word Passover. And then a few venture not to distinguish the day specifically, but rather they just leave it to a special religious gathering. And then finally, to conform to the religion of the Roman Church, they use a brand new word, Easter. Pesach is on the 14th day of the first Chodesh, or on the 14th day of the second Chodesh, given certain conditions, while Easter, or now known as Resurrection Day, is on the first Sunday after the full moon on or after the spring equinox. These are 2 different occasions. One is defined by the very word in Scripture. The other is defined by man's religion. There are many who are familiar with Strong's Concordance, and H2320 tells us that, well, a Chodesh is the new moon. It's a month. It's a lunar month. So we can wrap it up right here. But where did he get that? Is it based on tradition? Since the word Chodesh is translated in English Bibles as month, and with so many observing the Jewish calendar are in agreement, why am I bringing up the subject? Is it possible that we have not been aware of the real time according to God's standard? Throughout history, the act of telling time has been a necessity for mankind. Man wanted more control over time. I'll first show you how man decided a chronological division of time, which would give meaning to them. Well, man's first calendars, not God's, used 2 markers to predict seasons, which favored efficient planting and harvesting control, and those were the vernal and autumnal equinox. While all the days of the land remained seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will not cease. These are the vernal equinox and the autumnal. You'll see the going out and the coming in. It wasn't until the Roman Empire divided it into 4. God's seasons were 2. Then you have written calendars beginning around 3000 BCE. And the Sumerian calendar, well, it started at sunset with the first sighting of the new crescent moon, the waxing moon, and ended with the last sighting of the descending crescent, the waning moon. Once the waning moon had vanished, there followed a period of the disappeared moon, the new moon, which is really interesting because you go all the way back to the Sumerians, and they were looking for the new moon at the end, where in the Jewish calendar, they're looking at it in the beginning. But ironically, when I look at Facebook, they're always showing me pictures of the waxing crescent because you cannot see the new moon. Then you have the Babylonian used the 4 principal lunar phases to form their calendars, and they started with the first quarter. Elohim is a God of order. So in Jeremiah, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Okay, so It's not telling us that we can't look to the heavens. It tells us just not to be dismayed and not to learn the way they did it. So interesting. The Sumerians and the Babylonians were looking at the moon. Are we? In fact, research shows us that the Babylonians used the moon cycles for holy days and divination. These 4 principal phases were perceived as ominous signs, and there's evidence that they were particularly concerned about eclipses, inventing rituals that they felt would give them protection. The concern for eclipse led to the discovery of the 18th and 19th year cycles, impacting the development of the calendar. But we're not going to go there because, oh my gosh, I did, and that is a rabbit trail. Isaiah 55:8 tells us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways." It is a declaration of YeHovah. Our Creator is outside of the dimension of time. He is, He was, He will be. But because we are in this dimension of time, it is for our sake that Elohim placed markers in the heavens to mark time. He said, "Let lights be in the expanse of the sky to be for separating the day from the night. They will be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." I wanted to circle the English and the Hebrew equivalent to show you for signs, season, days, and years. What's missing is the word Chodesh, or month as it's translated. I've spoken to a pastor or two that says, well, that's just a given. Month is supposed to be in there, but you can't add to his word. You shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of YeHovah, your God, which I command you. We must start here on this verse. There is no month. What there is there's signs, seasons, days, and years. And we must hold on to that. Chodesh does eventually show up in Scripture, but not until the 600th year of Noah's life in 711. 2304 BCE, in fact. You can go to Bara Yom 2, the second 1,000 years, where you'll see the timeline outlined. This also is 1,656 years from the first day. Remember, he tells us for days and years. Since Genesis 1:14 is key to understanding God's timepiece, Chodesh is not there. Let's look closely at what is there. You have ot, first usage, and the scriptures usually say sign, but it can also mean a distinguishing mark or a banner, an omen. When you're looking at moed, the Hebrew word first usage, they have written it down for seasons, for sign, for seasons. But it can also mean appointed season, as well as a sign or signal, a tent of meaning. The tent of meaning is really interesting. The Yom is the first usage, and of course we've been talking about days in the Yom series. However, it can also be a division of time, not necessarily a 24-hour period. And then when we look at the years, which with the mem at the end, it's plural, then we see a year is defined as a revolution of time as of the course of the sun. This is key. Chodesh. Let's look at the Hebrew letters for insight. The chet, well, that represents a tent wall, a fence, a separation. The dalet, that represented a door that breaks through that separation or that tent wall, followed by a shin, which is that teeth, sharp, pressing, the action taken once one is through the door. However, Chodesh, we're told, is lunar month or a moon. Yet the word moon, well, they don't share too much in common. They certainly don't share a root word, which is usually in the center of the word. Moon has a yud, which is work, make, or throw, on account of the Paleo-Hebrew being that extended arm or hand. And the resh is a head. I would submit that it is a submitting head, seeing the top, one that submits. And then the chet, well, that's the only letter they share in common to come up with both of them meaning moon. And it's a tent, wall, fence, or separation. Scripture has been written for our benefit, and from a perspective we are challenged to understand. As viewed from the earth, our orbit causes the sun to appear to move through the constellations of the Mazzaroth on a path called the ecliptic, when in fact it is the earth that is moving. When the sun enters or returns to its starting point, a full revolution of time, a year, has passed. And this motion is difficult to observe directly because the stars cannot be seen when the sun is in the sky. The ancients had learned this method of timekeeping, but it was lost through the ages as nations mixed with other nations. This represents the sun's time spent in the tent of each sign during 2021. The sun cuts its way through the tent wall, tent of meeting, through the door, and presses on its course towards the completion of its circuit on the ecliptic. Each sign varies in size. Therefore, the amount of days it takes to press through each sign also varies. So the activities in the heavens with the 12 signs seem to match 1 Chronicles 27, where we see from 1st to 12 all the Kodeshim listed. What is missing, however, is a 13th Chodesh. If someone could please find it for me. But remember, don't add. This revolution of the sun is showing the dates for 2021. Is it not true that man has felt more comfortable adhering to the common majority rather than being set apart as a peculiar people as God called us to be? When we look at the new moons plotted aside the sun's entry into each Chodesh, you can see that the Chodesh are not aligned with the new moons. In 2021, 13 new moons are needed and still 10 days short of an entire revolution of the sun. The Jewish sages then added days, a method called intercalation. But is it not in direct opposition to his instructions? So what if it doesn't quite add up to 365 days? It's a tradition, and it's been the practice of man at least from the time of the Sumerians. But Moses got it right. Some might not consider this an important subject. The Christian religion has not spent much time studying God's calendar, as their focus is more on the future. The religion of Judaism has maintained the calendar according to the new moons in order to obey his instructions. Yet, the calendar and his perfect timing is invaluable to understand the days yet to come. His timing is perfect, and the moon plays a very important role that only can be realized when the moon takes its rightful place, marking the appointed times and allowing the sun to sit at its rightful place as head of each Chodesh, known in Scripture as Rosh Chodesh. We will see just how important the moon is in the year of the Exodus. Yeshua, Jesus, gave us a clue. He knew exactly what time it was, is, and shall be. So here we have again a translation issue, and it amounts to a different day. So the festival of Shavuot arrived. That's in the complete Jewish Bible. But when you look at other English translations, you'll see that they refer to it as Pentecost. It is, in fact, the same day. Pentecost is just the Greek word for the Hebrew word of Shavuot. And the people that were gathered there in one place were the people that revered the God of Israel and were there on that day because it is commanded that they were there. And yet, because of our religious beliefs, we're not celebrating that one day on the same day. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal? Says the Holy One. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing.